Isn't it nice to be out?
Hello everyone, this is Timing 2. What we're doing here today is we're going to demonstrate a WildStone very hard back nine round where, with not too many great approaches or anything, we can go ahead and get par and get that experience that you guys are looking for. The way I've set it up here is we have a guy with relatively normal power, 67, and not very many fancy clubs. So I'm using a 3-piece extreme spin ball today, and my driver distance is just about 220. And we should be able to just hang around par, and as long as we don't 3-putt anything, we should be fine. So let's go ahead and set up a round, and go ahead and just set up the round. One thing I would like to mention is that one thing when you do very hard, you need to use your lob wedge or sand wedge often. So you're going to need to go to the driving range and go ahead and hit it at the different percentages just to get a nice understanding of how much carry you're going to get, because definitely not linear. So I have a little post-it note here, and I'm going to go ahead and use that for the carry distances. So what I'm using is 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. How far my lob wedge goes, and the lob wedge I'm using right now goes about 84 yards total. Alright, let's try hole 10. The goal here is to go ahead and land somewhere over here, and it looks like with a 20-mile-an-hour wind I can just hit it without any additions, and it should go far enough. The whole goal is to get around this rock here and up to the green somewhere. Doesn't have to be right on it, but just somewhere close.
Fairway.
So that's acceptable. First thing I look at is the above or below my feet lie here, and it looks like it's just moving a tiny bit to where I would have to aim right, so I'm not worried about that. Then I look up here at the distances. I have 205 yards and it's up 16 feet. So I translate that to about 213 total. So I figure if I hit one of these things like 202 yards, it should be fine. And I have a lot of wind that's helping me, but it's pushing the ball right to left. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the 5-wood. And now I look down range here. I'm going to offset it the amount that I think 19-mile-an-hour wind is going to push it. And I'm going to hit a curveball, a little fade shot. That way I don't hit this rock. Let's see how this works out. The whole idea is just going to be around the green somewhere,
Nice
where
shot.
we can get a couple putts in and be fine. You don't have to be hitting dead on all the time and like perfect distances to score half decent. Alright, so it looks like our putt's a little bit left to right. Now the number one thing is going to be putting distance. Okay, each of these bars here, these 10% units, these little ticks, is going to be 3.3 yards. My total distance is 9.7 yards, which would put it just about here on the meter. And it's up 8 inches. I typically tend to use 10% being an offset for going uphill 7 inches. So in this case, I'm going to hit it right about here, about 42%, and it should be right around the hole. Shouldn't be any big deal here. So that's fine.
Yes.
Get our 2-putt and get out of here.
Good par.
Alright, on to hole 11. And typically, we try to drive somewhere around here. It looks like 270 yards to this little bottleneck here, so I don't have to worry about over driving it or anything. So I'm just going to aim for this throw to this, use an E-bar and a Power Shot 1, And I'm going to try to avoid using the power shot too, just because not everybody has it. And I'm going to offset it to the left for the 14-mile-an-hour wind. And it should be in a fine position for our second shot. I'm not trying to do anything great here. It's a nice par 5. We're just going to get going for a nice third shot into the green.
Fairway.
Alright, now the second shot, if we look, it's 230 yards to where it starts to tighten up. And my 3-wood goes 202 yards. So I think if I use an E-bar, it should be fine. Now it doesn't look like any above or below my feet, so I'm just going to aim anywhere in here so where it pushes the ball, it might end up around here. And just see where it goes. Doesn't need to be fantastic, just don't go in the rough. That's all we're doing.
Yes.
Alright, looks fine.
Fairway.
Now obviously you're going to score better if you have better approach shots. My lob wedge goes 84 yards. Looks like it's not moving left to right very much, and we have a little bit of a follow wind. So when I look up here, the up 5 feet is negligible, so I don't even worry about it. And I think if I hit my lob wedge with a 10-mile-an-hour follow wind, it should be hit around 88. So I bet you if I just hit it right at it, it's going to be somewhere close to just landing by the hole. And since I just offset a little bit left for that, left to right, and just see where it goes. I might just go a little bit past the hole, which for our purposes is just fine. Make a 1 or 2 putt and get out of here. I'm surprised it was a little bit short, but it's all good. We're on the green, and in regulation, no great shakes. And I have 3.7 yards, and it's uphill 1 inch. So 3.7 is about here on the meter, so just add a tiny bit for 1 inch, and should be pretty close.
Yes. Birdie.
One of the deals is that short putts don't go in, so I try to add just a tiny bit to every putt. That way it'll err on the side of going a little too far, and we shouldn't have a problem getting back. Okay, on this hole, the pin's on the right, so we're going to try to land in this area somewhere. Okay, and it looks like we're going to try to hit it like 245 yards, and it's down 22 feet. So I figure if I hit it like if it was on flat land around 220, that should be fine. And I need to compensate for this 15-mile-an-hour wind. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw an E-bar on there. And now we're going to aim for left to right. So I want it to end up right about here. And I have to guess how far it's going to push. So I'm going to guess it's going to push that amount. And let's see what happens.
Nice swing you got there.
And it looks like, okay, I might have hit it a little bit far. I almost went into the rough. Big deal here is not going into this rough. But as it is, I have 164 yards. I like to look at the green here. It's flat. There's no crazy hills next to the pin. So I'm just going to hit a straight up 160-yard approach shot. With a 14-mile-an-hour wind, I'm probably going to want to hit it about 150. So I have 147. So let's try that. It might be a tiny bit short. I'm just going to offset a little bit to the left and just smack it. And that looks short.
Rough.
Alright. Not the end of the world. So what we're going to do here is just practice going up and down with a little lob wedge shot. First I offset my left to right. I'm not worried about the wind too much. It's only 19 yards, so it's not going to push it very far. Now I break out my chart here for my lob wedge, and if I want to hit it about 17 yards, it looks like it's going to be 40%. So if I hit it about here, it would be fine. And because my rough stats are low here, it's only going to hit 76 to 88%. I'm just going to add a tad bit more in order to offset the amount that I'm losing for being in the rough. And let's see if we can get pretty close. But it's looking close enough to one putt. And that should be fun.
Yes. Approach and amazing.
Aim a tiny bit left. It's only 2.2 feet. So on these, or 2.2 yards. So on these shorter putts, most of the time if you just add a little extra power, it takes the break out and it should be fine. Let's see what that does. Yeah,
Nice.
not a problem. Didn't hit a great approach shot and we just hang around par. Nothing wrong with that. That'll get you your experience. Alright, hole 13. And I know from experience here, typically we want to land about 170 yards. So the tee box is flat. I have a 17-mile-an-hour wind in my face. So I guess if I add 15 yards or so to what I want to hit, so if I hit it like 185, it should be fine. So if I have 179 here, I'm guessing just a little power shot one will do it. And see if that wind stops it too much. So I'm trying to land around 170. But the good thing about this hole is even if you're short, the area right in front of the pin is really flat. So if you chip up to it, you'll be able to get a par easily. And as it turns out, that shot was just fine. And I just need to make sure I get the distance right on this putt. 11.5 yards and it's up 4 inches. And it looks like a little bit of left to right. So I'm just going to make a little offset to the left. Maybe that far. That's fine. And 11.5 on the meter is here. And I'm adding 4 inches. So I think I'm going to try to hit it right about this distance. And if nothing else, it's going to be close enough to the hole. We can get our par. And I ran out of mentality here, but I don't want to waste a drink because it's so close. It's only point. It's really close, so I'm just going to hit the ball.
Good par.
Good enough. Okay, hole 14. Now this hole, typically we want to land around this area. So if you look at that, we're going to land around there and roll down a little past it. And I always guess, oh, I want to hit like 185 yards on flat land. So if I have this wind coming at me, I'm guessing that the amount that it's going to push back on me is around 12 miles per hour to 13 miles per hour. So if I wanted to hit it 185 on flat land, with that, I'm going to hit it just shy of 200 yards, which is my 5-wood. So I'm going to aim down range here, and I'm going to offset to the right, because that's 17 miles an hour. And hopefully, that'll be good enough. So all we're looking for is a nice short approach on the second shot. Most everybody's gotten on this, but some people still try to drive it down here, and you actually have a worse chance of getting to the hole. Okay, now this hole, if you look at the green, there's a super hump right in front of the pin. So the major deal here on this shot is do not hit it right and do not hit it short. Because if you end up right and short here, it's going to add like a stroke and a half to your score. So even if you miss left over here, you're going to get a lot of pars. So I'm looking at 196 yards, and it's only up 7 feet. So I just need to offset for this wind because I'd like to land around here. So let's see, 17 miles an hour. I think an E-bar should stop that because I just don't want to be short and I don't want to be right. And I'm going to offset a little more than I think just to make sure I don't go right. And I ended up pushing it, so hopefully, because I offset it so much to the left, we should be fine.
On green.
So putt from here, it's going to go right to left a lot, right at the end. Sometimes I like to chip it just to control the distance. But what I'm going to do is aim right here and try to get the speed so I'm close enough so I'm not going to 3-putt. It's 13.3 yards, which is right about here on the meter. And I'm adding 7, so that'll be a full 10%. So right around here should be the proper distance. Let's try that. Oh, right about here should be the proper distance. And that should slop it close enough to the hole where it should be a pretty easy putt to get back. Now you can use the putting guides, and I may have given myself a difficult putt here. But what I have is 2.6 yards. And typically when you're this close and it's up 4 inches, 2.6 is about here on the meter. And plus 4 inches is going to be about here. It doesn't seem to break very much if you're hitting it that hard. So I'm going to go ahead and just try to hit it like that. See if we get in the hole. And that's fine, just surviving for par. Get that experience. Now you'll notice that I'm not getting a lot of experience. Part of that is because I'm level 32, so maybe they expect me to get par more often. But when you play with a group of 4 people, you'll get a lot of experience for this. Okay, typically on this hole we want to end up around here, so we can make it around this rock for our second shot. So this distance is 247. So I want to hit it about that. So I'm going to use an E-bar to my 220. And now aiming. I typically aim right about here when I have a wind going left to right. It should be somewhere close to what I want.
Nice shot. Fairway.
Okay, now with this amount of power, it's not too hard to get it to this position. I want to end up anywhere in here on my next shot. So I'm going to use my 3-wood, and I'm going to aim left enough that I'm pretty sure it's not going to hit the rock. I don't have any up and down here, so it should be fine. If you look over, I'm kind of aiming at the pin, but the wind's left to right, so it should be fine. That distance that I want to hit is around 204 here, and it's up 15 yards. So I could add a E-bar just to make sure I make it. Let me do a power shot 1. And let's try that.
Well done.
Okay, and I made it around the rock, and it's pretty wide around here. So unless you have some super power, that should be fine. It just rolls back down to the bottom, and we have a nice lob wedge shot in. Okay, we're looking at 64 yards, and it's up 15 feet. I'm going to go ahead and use one of my mentality drinks. So I'm going to change my lob wedge, and the wind is going at 14 miles an hour left to right, and right around, there's not too much action going on here as far as crazy putting around the pin. So all I really need to do is hit it a little bit hard because it's 15 feet up, and compensate a little bit for it getting knocked down by the 14 mile an hour wind going left to right. And so I would say, since it's 64 yards up and it's 15 feet up, I would want to hit it around 70 yards, I would say. 70 yards on my little chart here is 9.5. So I'm going to go hit it around maybe 93% if I can. I really try to get away from hitting percentages like that, but sometimes you have to. Let's see what we get here. 94% should be fine. And I pushed it a little bit, but close enough. So we should be able to two-putt this almost every time and get out of here. There's only a tiny bit of right to left, and it's 3 yards, so this is 3.3, so that should be good.
Birdie.
Oh, I need that coffee. So we're not doing anything great here. Okay, this is the number 16, just a wide open fairway. I used the E-bar and the Power Shot. Feel free to be real comfortable here using Power Shot 2 or Chocolate. And typically I'm gonna aim a little bit right of the hole just to make my second shot feel a little bit nicer. But it doesn't matter. This thing's so wide open. Just hit the ball hard and watch it go.
Fantastic.
And there's nothing much going on with the green on this one either.
Fairway.
If you look at the green, there's nothing going on here. There's a tiny hump behind the pin. And it's 144 yards and it's up only 4 feet. So I think I'm going to hit it around, I'm going to go for 147 yards. And there's right to left with a tiny bit in our face. So hopefully that tiny bit in our face will slow it down. So I'm going to aim right for 15 yards with a 7-iron. And let's see if we guess the right offset. But there's not too many chances for a huge score here. And I hit it way left, but doesn't matter. This looks like a nice easy 2-putt and out of here. If something nuts happens and it goes in, then we're good. 8.6 yards with no elevation change. So I'm going to just go ahead and aim left. A little bit for that break. And 8.6 yards is around here. Add a tiny bit for getting it past the hole. And should be close. Ooh, very nice. And no chance for a bogey here.
Good par.
So we're still grabbing that experience. One thing that's kind of weird with some people make a mistake with putting too is when you have a lot of swing like left to right, you have to add a tiny bit of power because it'll consume a little bit because you're actually traveling a little farther on your putt. But it's kind of not that bad, not that much. Okay, this one is 107 yards, minus 5 feet, and it looks like I have 17-mile-an-hour wind. This is going to be kind of a feel thing. The green does have a little topography here. It drops off to the left of the hole and beyond the hole. So there's 2 huge mounds. So I want to land right about there, I guess, and have it trickle down. So that's a big offset. So let's hope 17 miles an hour is around there. And let's see what goes on. Because we're using an all wedge, it's going to get way up in the air, so that wind's going to grab it. So my all wedge goes 104 yards before the wind. So let's see what happens.
Nice.
Yeah, it landed 98. So it knocked it down about 6 yards, which is fine. And we didn't do anything too crazy. We have a makeable birdie putt. So I'm going to aim right for this, and there's no up and down. It's 5.5 yards. So 5.5 is about here on the meter, so probably just hit it a tiny bit more and see what happens. And luckily it went in. But either way, we're not getting a bogey, and that's the whole point. The birdies are just bonus. We're just trying to survive these 9 holes. Oh, last hole. Wow, that was quick. Okay, here we're going to try to aim for this throat here. And it looks like 258 yards, 260 yards. And it's downhill about 10 feet. I usually just aim down the center and just add an E-bar and a little power shot and just hit it and see what happens. Should be alright. When you start feeling comfortable, you can just power shot twos and chocolate and all that if you really want to, but this course really doesn't require it. Extra distance doesn't get you too much. It's more about placement. Okay, this one's a little funny hole because there's so much danger in front of the pin right here because there's all that water and stuff. So that's going to really mess up your score. So I kind of make sure I hit it past the hole and just go in for 2 putts coming back or a chip and a putt, and typically it's fine. I'm not trying to be a hero here and land right on the pin. So it's 188 yards, uphill 7 yards, and I'm not worried about that too much because the wind's following at 16 miles an hour. So if I wanted to land about 180 and there's a 16 mile an hour wind, I'm going to want to hit, this is a toughie. I'm going with 166 yards. And I'm going to aim right because there's a little bit of right to left and should be fine. Don't go in the water and we live to fight another day.
Pretty good.
And it's short a little bit. Ooh, I barely escaped my life here. But it's kind of good that you guys see this too because this shouldn't be the end of the world. There's a little bit of right to left on this putt if you look at the topography of the green. And our wind's going a little bit right to left. So I'm going to aim a tiny bit right. And I'm only going to hit it between 76 and 88%. So if it's 16 yards away, I want to hit it around 13 or 14 yards. If there was nothing else going on, 13 or 14 yards should be around 35%. So I'm going to try to hit it around 37% or so. Yeah, I'm going to try that. So let's see how close we can get. Wow, 38%. So let's see how it goes. It's a bit of a crapshoot because there's that range of distance. And I ended up pulling it, so should still be close enough. I don't need to worry about it. Oh, here's my mentality drink. But I have a dead flat putt at 2.58 yards. And that should do it.
In. Nice.
So this is my first video ever, so you know, it's not going to be that polished, but I'm hoping that you guys can get something out of this. And if you do, that'd be great.